1 week ago, a guy said to me, but machine learning is not AI. In my mind, I said, Houston, we have a problem. That's a big problem because today we have so many experts in AI, so many ChatGPT experts on AI. That's a big problem. There are too many people who are speaking about AI, and I think it's very important today to hear the specialist of AI instead of so many people who deal with this question without understanding what is really. So the first definition that I would like to give you is a mathematical definition, because I consider AI first is mathematics. It's quite difficult. AI is a capacity to model a nonlinear world in a very large dimension space. Yeah, it's not so easy to understand. What is the nonlinear world? This is our world. A world of crisis, a world of breakdown. It's not a linear world. What is a large dimension? This is the example of AlphaGo. With AlphaGo, we have so many combinations. Most of the number of atoms in the universe. That is to say that AI is able to understand the large dimension, more than humans. If I talk with my gendarme about nonlinearity, about large dimensions, it's quite difficult to understand. So what I said is that AI is a tool to be more efficient against crime by, in the same time, preserving our individual freedoms as well as our model of society. This is a discipline of balance between these two different concepts. And I have also another definition. I said you that we have many definitions on AI. Some people say that AI is a tsunami. I don't think so. Why? Because a tsunami is destroying. It's not a very good thing, a tsunami. AI could be a source of progress for everybody in healthcare as well as in the field of security. But not only a very good thing, it could be also a bad thing. But first, it's a source of progress. According to you, what is this big wave? This is AI. I prefer to say that it's a big wave instead of a tsunami. And who is the surfer? AI, okay. And who is the surfer? The Gendarmerie Nationale of the law enforcement agencies. But in another way, this is you. This is Europe. It depends on what kind of scale you want to work. What is important for the surfer is to know where to go. If you don't know where to go, I'm sure that he will not stay on his surf. Another point is that we made a good training for this surfer. If he don't know how to surf, it will be very difficult for him to stay on the surf. Okay? I'm going to come back to this notion of vision, of cape, before to go on surf. I don't say that a gendarme is a surfer, okay? We are not just a surfer. So, in fact, what I would like to say first is that AI is really a game changer for criminals. I propose you to be a criminal during 5 minutes. My problem is that I'm going to explain you how to be a good criminal and what to do with AI to commit crime. That's a big problem for me, but I think it's important to explain you this kind of issue. Yeah, it's like a surf. Okay, I say that it's a game changer. That is to say that thanks to AI, it's very easy for criminals to commit some very high-level crimes because AI is accessible for all the criminals on the net. It's very easy to make a deepfake today. It's not necessary to understand what is a deepfake. It's not important to understand the question of regulation for a criminal to do a deepfake. It's important for us, not for the criminals. And all AI tools are today accessible to criminals because of open source. That's a good thing, open source. But it's a way of also to do some crimes with AI. I would like to give you some example of offenses, of techniques to commit offenses with AI. We can change the slide. Yeah, the first thing is data poisoning. We have generate a fake fingerprints and we show it to our expert. They said at the beginning, no, it's a fake. So we rebuild our fingerprints, and at the end they said, it's a real fingerprints. It was not. That is to say, with a fingerprint generated by an AI, it's easy to poison our official databases. Imagine that we do that, it will be more and more difficult for us to identify criminals if we do it. It's not so complicated to do it. We need to put some pictures, some fingerprints in our databases, or to change the label. A label is a correspondence between the image and what is the image. And if you do that, you can make a big catastrophe in our databases. Another kind of example is what we call the adversarial attacks. I don't know if you know what is it. Adversarial attacks is a method to generate an optimized noise just to disturb the interpretation of an AI system. That is to say, with this picture of a penguin, I put an optimized noise in the system, and I can confuse a penguin with a horse, with a dog, with what you want. It's not really a problem for law enforcement if we confuse a penguin with a dog. But it's a problem for an autonomous vehicle if we confuse a stop with a speed limit panel. In the very short future, we have more and more autonomous, not completely autonomous, I think, but autonomous vehicles that will interpret speed limits or the different panels. It could be a problem. Another problem with this kind of attacks is when you go abroad at the airport with your passport, if you are a criminal, if not necessary to change your photography, you can attack the system, and the system will confuse the criminal with someone who is completely common. Okay, this is two examples of what we can do with adversarial attack. Another kind of example is, of course, the deepfakes. It's a very friendly to use with deepfakes, except if it's used in a goal of criminality. I would like to explain you how does it works. At the beginning of the deepfakes, it's not the LLM of LVM, large language model, or large vision model. It's based on the generative adversarial networks. This is the beginning of deepfakes. I would like to explain the principle. If I want to produce an eagle, I put an eagle because it's neutral. But if I want to create a child abuse video, a child abuse images, what I'm going to do if I have two neural networks, deep neural networks. The first one is a generator. The second one is a discriminator. The first thing to do is to train the discriminator with some real child abuse video, child abuse images. Your discriminator will be very performant to be able to discriminate what is a child abuse images versus what is not a child abuse images. This is the turn of the generators networks. I send it a noise, bad images, and I said it, generate me a child abuse image. The first image will not be very perfect. You send the image to the discriminator will say, it's a bad images. So you put a function to the generator to say, you are not a good neural network. Please change your features, change your parameters to increase the quality of your generation. And he will do it. And after a succession of different tries, he produces a very good child abuse images. These very good child abuse images goes to the discriminator. And the discriminator says, it's a good images. But I say that it's a generated images. So I say to the discriminator, you are not good. Please be more performant. And it will increase its quality of discrimination. And with this kind of iterative process, you will be able to generate a pape with a doudoune, a pope, sorry, with a doudoune, President Macron, or Barack Obama with Angela Merkel on the beach. You can do what you want with this kind of deepfake. Today, in the field of crime, it's used for what we call the president's scam. I think that you know what is it. It's to phone the servers of your company, and it's not really the boss of the company. It's a fake boss, and he's going to ask for a transfer of money, and it works. The problem with AI is that it works better than without AI. It's used for love scam. In France, we have had an example with Brad Pitt. This is a kind of example of love scam. Damage to reputation for industry, for company as well as for individuals. Please stay on the previous slide. Yeah. And the other problem, it's a real problem, and it's a reality. This is in the field of pedocriminality. We have more and more lots of defects. And we need to be able to detect if it's or not. Another way to use AI to commit offenses is to use some dark GPT. You have the web and the dark web. We have also the chat GPT and the GPT, the dark GPT. For instance, ROM GPT is a large language model to produce some malware, to produce some viruses, to produce some campaign of phishing. Fake, but very realistic. You have fraud GPT, this is the same thing. You can produce some bad messages, some campaign of phishing, as well, some example of scam, as well as warm GPT. Another point with a large language model is a question of cyber robustness. Today, when you use LLM, we are not able in Europe to make our own, except with Mistral, to make our own foundation model. So we use a foundation model from Meta, for instance. We use it in our information system, not connected with Meta, and we make a RAG or fine-tuning to adapt it to our databases to produce an answer. The problem if your foundation model is not secure, you will import all the viruses of the malware in your information system. That's a real problem for us because our data is a little bit sensitive, our information system is a little bit sensitive. But AI is very useful for criminal, but I say that it's really a game changer, but it's a game maker for the law enforcement agencies. And we work a lot at a European level to produce some AI application to fight against crime. I said you that with the surfer, it's very important to have a cape. This is the reason why we call our strategy, AI strategy, Cape AI or Cap IA. 4 main reasons for that. The first thing is we need to keep our Hegelian activities. If we are not conscious of the importance to keep it, we can be sure that we are losing our capacity to protect citizens. If we are not conscious of that, tomorrow you will be protected by big tech. Perhaps it will be more efficient than with the Gendarmerie Nationale. It's not my opinion. But the question of individual of the privacy will not be the same. The goal of a big tech is not the goal of an institution like the French Gendarmerie. We are not in an economic perspective. What we want is to live in a secure area. Please come on to the previous. Yeah. The second point is that AI is very used by criminals. This is just what I have explained to you. And it's very useful to help the gendarme in his daily task, to gain time for audio transcription, for instance, to gain time in the field of mass video analysis. It's very useful for us to use AI. And the last point, I think it's very important, the last point, is that AI is very complex. It's not easy, AI. We need to take it into account for human resources. We need qualified resources. And we need to understand what is AI because we have a duty of redevability in front of you, in front of the citizen. That's very important that we are able to understand what is the black box. How does our system works? It's very important to be able to explain it. I did it in front of our national representative at the European level as well as the national level. And to do our strategy, we have 4 pillars. The first one is to keep our sovereignty. The second one is a question of responsibility. The third one is a question of human resources and training. And the last one is about the question of sharing our experience, sharing about skills, sharing about different kind of application. So what is responsibility in the field of AI? In 2021, we have produced our code of ethics. We are the first national organization to produce our code of ethics. It's available on the net. If you want to consult it, you can do it because it's very important for an institution like the Gendarmerie Nationale to make public its code of ethics. Please come back to the previous. And in this code of ethics, it's not so complicated, but what is important is to include our AI application in the value of the institution. This is because the reason why we speak about responsibility, respect, trust, transparency, loyalty, and knowledge. It's very important to understand what we do. The second question of responsibility is to be active on the discussion about AI regulation. It's very important for us to participate to the debate. Why? Because if we don't do it, we create a kind of asymmetry between criminals and the law enforcement agencies. As I said previously, if we are not authorized to use AI, we are not authorized to protect you against a crime more and more sophisticated. We will not have power to protect it if we don't use AI in front of so many new attacks. So what you notice on this regulation, the principle of this regulation is to work on use cases and to put a level of risk according to the use case. What you notice is the law enforcement application are more or less all at the high risk application. It's a little bit a problem for us because we need to prove many things in our application. It's not easy. But it's also important because what we want to produce, it's trust. Next, yeah. We need to improve the confidence for the citizen. If we don't do it, it's a failure. It's very important to create a trust between us and the citizen. And this kind of regulation can help us to do it. And the third point of responsibility is to adopt a quality insurance approach. We have built a quality insurance process to evaluate all our applications. That is to say that we produce a quality manual to explain all what we do. And for each kind of application, everything is not finished. But we are writing a documentation, a scientific documentation, a user documentation, a risk documentation, and also a documentation for experimentation, because we need to explain what we are going to experiment. Okay? So I said about the necessary to share with some other organization. If you fuse AI and the Ministry of Interior, what are you going to see to appear? A famous American actor, Tom Cruise, not for Top Gun, but for Minority Report. The fear of a society of surveillance. We have the example of the social credit in China, and people are very frightened with this kind of phantasm because it's not possible in Europe. And you can be sure that I'm not interested by your life. That's enough for me to be interested by the life of criminals. I hope you are not criminals. Otherwise, I'm interested by your life. But if you are not, I'm not time for you. Okay? But so we have many exchange with some think tank in this department with the EuropIA Institute. We have many links with this institute, with the Pôle SCS in Marseille too, with the ģᴏᴍᴇᴜ. ģᴏᴍᴇᴜ is a national organization that gather big companies, startup, national organization, institution, and this kind of hub is very important to exchange and to share some databases, some application, some vision about AI. We have some partnerships with academic institutions like CNRS, IA, some IA cluster in your department too, and in Toulouse with ANITI, for instance. And we have, of course, some partnerships with startups. In your department, we know very well Videtics, for instance, a company of video analysis. And we are very linked with the French tech and with some other company in our specific field of security. It's very important to train our personnel to AI. The first level is the level of acculturation. To do it, we produce a review, a magazine, Culture IA. You find it every 2 months. If you scan the QR code, you have 2 gifts during this presentation. If you scan this QR code, you will have all our number of Culture IA this kind of magazine explain you how to use, not how we use AI in the field of homeland security. It's a question of acculturation for our personnel. It's a question for the citizen. Next, please. At the other level, we have created a chair with an engineering school in Paris dedicated to AI and security. That's very important because thanks to this chair, we are able to create some PhD for a pool of experts. And between this very high level of expertise and the acculturation, we propose some short courses on AI, 1, 2, or 3 days, to explain what is AI, to explain the question of regulation, to explain the question of ethics, because ethics is not law, to explain how to build a strategy. That's very important for high-level manager to understand what is really AI in this fundamental theory, as well as in practical application that we use. We can do it in the field of cybersécurité. We can do it for high-level manager and so on. A point on AI against discrimination. That's very important to work against discrimination, but we need to take into account that in every case, AI is discriminant. Because if we want to detect a firearm and another harm, you need to make a frontier between these two kinds of data. It's a linear discrimination. But it's very important to work on the question of the color of the skin, on the question of the gender, and so on. We have 25 criteria in France that's very important to study when we develop an AI system. For instance, we have created, because it's not possible for us to evaluate our system with real data. This is the reason why we have created some synthetic data. Color people, white people, people from Asia, just to know if the result of the performance of our AI face recognition system is the same with color people, with white people, or with Asian people. We did it also with men and women. The problem when you generate a synthetic data is that all this person does not exist, don't exist. So you need to create a same pictures, a same face, sorry, but not the same pictures, to be able to make a comparison between both. The next, please. We have built our own system of pedophilian images detection. Our system works. Our main problem now is a problem of on legal aspect, because on child abuse video you have some people, some face. It's a data personal. It's a personal data. So we need to respect the GDPR. It's around 1 year and 2 years. That is to say that during all this time, it will not be possible for us to use this kind of detector. This is a very important point because in the gendarmerie, we cannot do what we want. You need to be conscious of that. We respect the GDPR. We respect the AI Act. The problem is a question of delay. If we have 1 or 2 years to be conform, I think it's too long, especially in the field of AI. We need to accelerate this kind of delay. We need to simplify the regulation. That point is very important. And just to explain you that we make some publications in research field to explain what we do. We have some very high-level experts able to make some publication in a research academy. Thank you. Next. We have developed an application of crime prediction. For instance, in this example, we can make the different slide and launch the video. Okay. For instance, we choose the date, yeah, and you have a heat map where it is red, it's a high risk level. What you see is that it's very important for us because we can compare with real data. The pins are the real data, the heat map is a prediction. It's not so bad, in fact. And the main advantage is because we have produced it, we are able to calibrate it at the good point between false positive and false negative. Next, please. And next, please. And yeah, I would like to insist on 3 points. It's not a black box because we have developed it. It's more transparency. When I use it, I have explained to the administrative authorities, to the judicial authorities, what the kind of operation against burglaries I'm going to do for the next month. I will explain it before the crisis of yellow jacket in France to the citizen. What will the next gendarmerie operation to fight against burglaries? And a very important point, we are not in the US. I'm sorry if you are people from US. We are not in the US, and we consider that this kind of tool needs to be used at a decision level, not at an executive level. This is very important because at the decision level, you have different kind of possibility to plan your operation. The predictive analysis is one possibility, but it's not all the possibility. So you take it into consideration or not. Next, please. And we make some publication too. Yeah, the next. Okay. We also analyze mass video. In every kind of crime now, you have some videos. And it's very important for us when you have hours and hours of video to analyze to be able to detect not a specific person with face identification. It's not the question. But we need to, please next, to be able to detect if we have some people on the video. Next, please. And what you see on these pictures is that we are able to make a blur on the face. And this is also a reality on the next video, please. In this video, we are able to detect some specific cars, yellow cars or something else. And you don't see the license plate because we have detected the plate and we make a blur on the plate to respect the GDPR, for instance, because a license plate is a personal data. The question of deepfakes is a big problem for us. For many gendarmes, they consider that they are better than AI to detect a deepfake. So we have decided to make a test, and we produce 100 pictures. Some are fake, some others are real. Please. So you see this kind of test. The answers are not the right answer. Next, please. Another example of images. Next, please. And what we noticed is that for humans, we are around 50%, 53%. For the machine, today, 94% of good detection. When I say today, it's not completely exact. Because this kind of techniques evaluate so quickly that it's very difficult for us to be at the good level. But in some specific kind of deepfakes, we are able to detect it. What is interesting for us is that for humans, it takes 20 minutes for 100 pictures. For a machine, 1 second. Imagine when you are in a criminal cases, in a perquisition, time is very important for us. We need to detect very quickly all the fake images. Please, next. But what is interesting to know for us is not to do a test, is to make a deepfake detector. This is what we do by make a training on different kind of methods of deepfakes. And thanks to this kind of training, we're able to detect new images produced with one of these methods with a high level of performance. If we have an image produced with another method, it's more difficult for us to detect it. Okay? Next, please. So, thanks to generative AI, it's a test, but just to show you some kind of experiments that we are doing, we consider that perhaps it could be interesting to use generative AI to transform a facial composite in a real pictures. This is what we do. At the center, you have a real photo of the guy. Is a facial composite on my right and on my left. This is the generative image by our system. I don't know if it's better to produce a facial composite of real images, but the result is not so bad. What we are trying to do now, it's a text-to-image application. That is to say that a witness is able to describe a person, and AI will be able to generate, based on the text description, an images of a suspect, for instance. Next, please. Yeah. This is another example of AI generative AI, sorry. We are able to age people, older or younger. And this is an example. What is interesting with this example that something is good, something is not very good. For instance, the teeth are not so bad, but the eyes are not good because the color change. The teeth is good because we have teeth from childhood and child from when the person is a little bit more aged. Okay, next. We have published it too. Yeah. The question of deepfake authentication, please. Next. Is we have produced our own deepfake video 3 years ago. It's not a new method. I would like to propose you the next video, please. The result. We have taken 2 videos from the net. A video of Jean Dujardin, another one of me some years ago. And what we have done, this is this kind of deepfakes with my face and the face of Jean Dujardin. I don't know, I'm better than Jean Dujardin, but the makeup is not exactly the same. But what you see, it's not very complicated to do it. And what is interesting to explain is that this kind of tools is available for criminals. If you pay, it's more and more performant. And now the new techniques are more performant than this kind of techniques. So you can imagine our job now is more and more complicated. Thank you. Next, please. The second gift. This is what we do with 3 companies, 3 startups, very dynamic startups, Magic Lamp, Les Surligneurs, and Pluralism, and I'm in the cyber command of the Ministry of Interior. This is a kind of game that we are going to launch before the end of the week, so it's an exclusivity. You can play to detect or not a deepfake. We consider that our detector, we are not going to show you how does it works, because we don't want to explain to the criminal our techniques. But with this kind of tools, I consider that it could be interesting to sensibilize the citizen to the question of deepfakes and to acculturate him with its cognitive capacity to detect a real from a fake images. Our last application. Of course, we use LLM too, and we have an experimentation on the a kind of assistance to the gendarme at the police station. Tomorrow, the gendarme will be assisted with an AI to answer to your question when you come in our police station. I think it could be a good thing, but we experiment it because we don't know if it's very relevant or not, but it's interesting to test it. So this is my last slide. AI for law enforcement agency is not a choice. We need to do it because AI for criminal is the reality. You can be sure of that. Thanks a lot for your attention. I don't know if we have time for questions. If we have not some question, where are the organizer? Yeah, a question? In French or in English, if you want.
It will be in English for the benefit of all, but thank you. I have a question since, as you said, you had an AI charter, ethics charter very early. So what has been your experience in using it?
It's very important to produce a code of ethics on AI because it's a new discipline. We have did it before the AI regulation. But as you know, AI regulation is based on ethical principle. The question is how to follow the application of our code of ethics. And that's a very important point. This is the reason why, and we are not enough to do it, but we try to do it. It's very important to check if our gendarme follows this code of ethics. It's not a pretext to make a code of ethics, but it's very important every year to check if you have some problem with this code of ethics, and you need to be able to reevaluate it 1 year after, for instance, if it's necessary. Have you got some other question? Yeah.
I have a question from what we saw about the prediction of crime. Like, it's really look like a Minority Report you mentioned. And is it like focused on the kind of crime in the place and the time, or is just the place and the time? So, and how do you? We was talking in this room some hours before about just prediction about law prediction, judge prediction. So what can happen if I broke the law? So I want to think what's the connection?
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a very good question because I have no time to explain all the importance of this kind of application. We respect the question of minimization of data. We don't use your behavior. We don't use data from people. We use the fact, not data on people. And on the fact, we use the time and the address. The address is a personal data. So we have exchange with the CNIL, our regulator in France, about the interest of using this kind of data in comparison with the finality of the tools. And that point is very important. So to answer to the question, we use it really not to evaluate the risk of a new occurrence by a people, like in the US, for instance. It's not Minority Report. Before you will before your birth, we don't know if you will be a criminal or not. But we're just working on fact, and we explain that a prediction is not the reality. It's just a prediction. It's just it's a probability. That point is very important to take into consideration. The decision must be human. All our kind of application are under the human supervision. Why we use it for burglaries? Because it's a mass offenses. Every day we have some burglaries. So it's a recurrent offenses. Because it's a recurrent offenses, we can use some neural network, recurrent neural network, dedicated to this kind of prediction. This is what we do. We have started with method of regression, and now we use neural networks, recurrent neural networks, because it's very well adapted to this kind of application. Thank you. Yeah? I don't know if you have time yet.
In business, we use AI for productivity and competitiveness. Do you feel that now competitiveness? Do you feel now in AI you are accelerating the ability to solve cases? And do you see that your team is providing better answers to the difficulties the society is facing?
I think we are more efficient. That is to say that, for instance, for the child abuse images detection, if we have an automatic detector, we will increase the time to materialize the offense. Because we do it, our investigators can concentrate his own activities on the exchange with the suspect, not to find images. It's better to exchange with the suspect to find new clues, for instance, new evidence. And that point is important. I think that AI, thanks to AI, crime is more efficient. I hope that thanks to AIs, our activities will be more efficient. And to be honest, I'm convinced that we have no choice. Okay? Thanks a lot. Oh. The last one.
Thank you. I just want to ask a simple question. You say that you are using Llama 2, right?
Losing?
Llama 2 model.
Yeah.
And why are not using Mistral AI,
in fact,
the French model?
It's a lie. We use Llama 3.
Yeah.
But it depends on the best open weight model. Sometimes we use Mistral. Sometimes we use Llama. Because sometimes Mistral is better than Llama. Sometimes the new version of Llama is better than Mistral. In fact, we try to use the better. But your question is very important because we need to evaluate our application and we need to adapt it on our databases. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
After, I can ask after to your question. Okay. Thanks a lot.